Hi, Tracy. How are you?
I am doing okay. I'm a little sore this evening.
Yeah, good times. It's an exciting time to be alive. All right, so we are coming on the hog tonight to talk about food foundations, which we're launching next week.
Yes.
I think actually, I was thinking today, like, we could even launch it today. Like, I think I actually have all of the pieces in place, like, behind the scenes to get it all ready to go. Like, but anyway, it's ready to go. And you have taken it for a spin. Do you want to give us a little rundown on food foundations, why this is a next step? And it may not be the next step for everybody who is looking at histamine stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll pick up when your jaw is too sore. It's okay.
So this is a really great next step for people who are just feeling kind of overwhelmed with getting dinner on the table. And so if you are the person who maybe regularly you've got a pizza night in your household, or, you know, you could replace pizza with anything else. It could be KFC night or, you know, whatever it is, that sort of convenient grab and go. If you're the kind of person who finds that you're getting cravings, maybe like mid-morning or mid-afternoon, you're reaching for a coffee, maybe you're heading out for a donut or a bagel or some kind of carby snack, this program is really designed for you. And also if you're at the grocery store and you find that instead of buying from the fresh food aisle, you're kind of getting those pre-made dinners, this is the program for you too. So we're calling it Food Foundations because it's kind of the ground level, like introductory things that you have to be really aware of before you can jump into the Histamine Haven Protocol. And so we want everybody, when we launch Kitchen Haven and then ultimately Histamine Haven Stage 1, we want everybody to be on the same page and be prepared to make that step. What am I missing, Luca?
Oh, there's a lot of little pieces to it too. Like, so Food Foundations is, you know, when we first sat down and Tracy and I hammered out the book, it took us a good year and a bit to put together, what does a protocol look like? What kind of pieces do we want? Where do you take some foods out? Where do you reintroduce? How do you do the pieces of figuring out how food impacts you? Because part of the issue when histamine is around is that your triggers may be different than the next person's.
Mm-hmm.
So high histamine foods for sure can be one of the triggers. Some you may tolerate better than others, whereas your neighbor who may have histamine issues may not tolerate the foods you tolerate. There may be other compounds in some of those foods that trigger your own symptoms that are not necessarily higher histamine food, but for example, something like oxalates may contribute to the dumping of histamine for you specifically in your body. So we thought when we first sat down and hammered out what those three levels would look like, then off to the races, we were like, okay, this is good. Okay, we wrote it all out and we figured it out. And then we took a step back and we thought, okay, hang on. You cannot throw somebody in Stage 1 of Histamine Haven right from the get-go, unless it's someone who has done a couple of different protocols and has really gone deeply into certain protocols, I guess, like the AIP protocol,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking GAPS protocol, I'm thinking, and I specifically, I know both you and I did the GAPS protocol on our own, and that's actually when we saw worsening of our own personal symptoms. So it was one of those like, geez, like we know, you know, we've gone to school for this, we've done many years of diving deep into specific protocols, but you can't throw somebody in right at the get-go into Stage 1. You have to meet people where they're at in order to create that safe haven. I come back to this quite a bit. We do call ourselves Histamine Haven very much on purpose. Haven is a part of our name because it doesn't matter what you do with foods. If you're not creating that safe haven, you're not going to see the changes you want. The deal is when histamine is being dumped in the body, on some level somewhere, the body doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
You have to create a haven. And I can't call myself Histamine Haven if I'm asking you to go off of the deep end and you've never had a swimming lesson in your life and go jump in with that's what it's going to feel like. So we wanted to create different stages in order to pick different people up where they need to immerse themselves in order that we can all get to the stage of actually doing that Histamine Haven Protocol. So that's what Food Foundations is. It's really, yeah, we address histamines a little bit, but even if histamine is not an issue, I'll tell you, this is a protocol or a program really, a program that'll serve people who are dealing with cravings, people who don't know how to make dinner from scratch, or in my case, what it was for me was I thought making dinner from scratch meant picking up a roast chicken, picking up a jar of buttered chicken sauce that somebody else had made, patak, for example, and, oh, I know how to cook rice at home, so I'll cook rice from scratch. And that to me was a from scratch dinner. Turns out somebody else roasted that chicken and they tended to use canola oil probably on it.
Oh, and like talk about histamine levels going through the roof. Those, you know, they're on that rotisserie for hours.
Exactly. And so that was further compounding some of the stuff that was going on for me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know the butter chicken sauce has like soybean oil in it, I think, or it has a bunch of different ingredients that are not necessarily food. Well, it tastes like the real thing, but it's not from scratch. So part of what we're aiming to do with Food Foundations is to meet the person who was like me, picking up the roast chicken and the jar of curry and saying, I cook from scratch. And then realizing, oh, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I won't cook from scratch. So it's there to meet people on the journey of figuring out how to get dinner on the table. So whether or not histamine is an issue for you, we do touch on it a little bit in the program for sure, and talk about how histamine can have a role to play in choosing these foods and how to put it on the table. But it's going to fit anybody who wants to reduce inflammation. And that is part of the secret, actually. One of the drivers of possible histamine issues in a body is some type of inflammation. And I liken it to, you know, people who have had inflammation or people who have struggled with something not working well for a long time. And by the time your body is sending out those signals saying, something is up, can we please take a look at this? It's been going on for a long time. So with clients, I usually say, you know, it's like if you've gone down this corridor of inflammation for a long time and you're at the end here, if you've been in it long enough, you're going to take a side detour into a little corridor going that way into histamines. For me to take you out of inflammation, if we do step 1 through 10, we'll get you out of inflammation. But if you happen to be down that corridor of histamines, if I do step 1 through 10, we're actually going to send your body deeper into the histamine corridor and you're not coming out. So when it comes to histamine issues, we need to start moving things slowly. We need to do it methodically. We need to do it one small foot in front of the other and making those meaningful small changes on a day-to-day basis. And those are those pieces that add up to building that safe haven. And it's really, that's part of our goal. Every week for 4 weeks in this program, there's going to be a different topic. So the first week we talk about fats. The second week we talk about carbohydrates, pardon me. And then the third week, we talk about protein. We address animal protein. We also talk about vegetarian and vegetable-based proteins and why that may not be an option. And if it is the only option you've got, how to perhaps think about preparing those vegetarian proteins and why you need to think about that step and what that role is in mast cell and histamine issues for sure. And then that fourth week, we get into putting it all together. So there's a different topic on each week, those macronutrients, if you will, and how to think about how to source some of these ingredients, which ones will help reduce inflammation, which ones will drive inflammation, and you may want to swap those out. And then we also talk about how to eat out because we're not dumb. Realistic. Like, I don't know that it's realistic to ask people who may be relying on a lot of prepared meals or pre-cooked meals to switch 100% to going 100% homemade from scratch, making your own ketchup and things like that. That's not realistic, and we understand that. Absolutely. In life, there has to be a balance. And it is when things are not in balance that problems start to show up. So in the interest of bringing in balance, we also address in that 4th week, okay, let's talk about going out. What does it look like? How could you maneuver a menu? What kind of choices, what kind of lifestyle hacks, if you will, you could bring to the table in order to make that meal support your health as opposed to drive some of those inflammatory things and further to that, possible histamine stuff. So it's 4 weeks of self-directed content. You get delivered 2 modules a week. The first one has videos. It's about an hour every week, maybe. Some weeks are a little bit under an hour. Some will be a bit more, especially the protein one because it is so complicated. And then we get into the second module, which brings a few recipes to the table in order for you to actually put into practice those things we've talked about. And they are all recipes that we have built into the Histamine Haven cookbook. So those will be featured in our weekly meals, I suppose, or the recipes shared. And we have some new ones actually that we've developed since actually putting the book together. So some of that new stuff is going to be in there as well. There's some cheats and templates that we share and ways to think about approaching making mealtime a real thing. So this is the program that is the introductory first step for the person who's just figured out they have histamine issues, but they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really good program for those people. So we've got a few different things. We're going to be sending out an email to our newsletter gang. In that email, they're going to get a coupon to save, I think they're getting 50% off. I just wrote the email this morning. So yeah, they're saving 50% off the cost of the course. So they're going to get a special coupon. And then those people who are just checking out through our social media accounts, well, you're going to get a special beta price of $50 off. Our newsletter gang is going to get, I think, $75.
So sign up for the newsletter to get the additional 20% off.
And those 4 weeks of classes, like the beauty of it is that they're there forever.
Yes.
Once you buy that program, you can go back and you can watch it as many times as you need to. So if it starts to get overwhelming, we always talk about, here are your tasks. Here are the pieces to prioritize. Here's how to pace. And here is how there's prioritize, pace,
plan.
Yeah. So we walk you through some of those practical pieces to put in place in order to make the content we're sharing doable in the kitchen, because it's nice to hear us go on and on about these things, but how does that translate into dinner? Well, we get you there with those. So I'm pretty excited about it. We worked hard on
we did. And you know what, since their cookbook is like sitting at the publishers and we don't know what's happening, it's really exciting for us to be able to share some of those recipes before the book even comes out.
Yeah. And we were, I think a lot of this is because Tracy and I were both sitting here twiddling our thumbs saying, okay, the book is sent. I can't sit idle. I can't wait. This stuff, we're ready. We're ready. We have the content. We have the skills. We have the recommendations. We have the information. We have, people need this right now.
Yeah.
We need to wait 2 years.
I know. I have clients emailing me and saying, when is the book coming out? And I'm like, I don't know.
We sent it in April. I heard from a friend who's a published author. He said, it takes at least 6 to 8 months for them to even just look at stuff. So, and I'm sure everybody was home for the last year and a half that perhaps there's an influx of cookbooks coming through. So maybe we've added noise, but I think it's good noise. I think our approach is a little different than what's out there. We are talking about how to go low histamine for sure, and how that can be of service. We also talk about how going low histamine is not necessarily the fix-it piece. We are the ones who talk about, you got to figure out why histamine is an issue, because going low histamine doesn't fix it. Low histamine will reduce your symptoms in the early stages, but in the long run, you need to look at what are the nutrient deficiencies that are contributing to the picture. You need to look at what are the root causes of why your body is dumping extra histamine. And we need to do some of the repair to the gut and the liver and the adrenals, support the immune system, and really help calm the body into feeling safe. So we've worked all of that into the guide and cookbook, and it's going to be, of course, all part of our programs.
And I can't tell you how many of my clients come to me and they're like, You know, I've read about low histamine. I've read about Gundry's low lectin. You know, I've looked at AAP. Like they're trying to get the information they need, and they're trying to put it together, and it's overwhelming, right? There's so much information out there. So we wanted to simplify it all, and I think where we're quite unique and different from other protocols is that we wanted it to go through stages as a tool for people to customize the protocol for themselves, figure out what foods they tolerate, which ones you know, don't work for them. And so yeah, it's been a labor of love.
That what you call it? I call it a labor. No, I call it a labor.
And I kind of want to bring it back to food foundations for a sec, because Luca talked a lot about the anti-inflammatory piece. And because we are an organism, right? You are a whole, complete organism. And that means that every single thing in the body it feeds into cycles. So if you know the foods you're eating are inflammatory, that's one piece of it. But like, where else is the inflammation coming from? If you have mast cell activation, obviously your mast cells are dumping inflammatory mediators all the time. But because everything is cyclical within the body and it's not linear, it means that you have to come in and break the cycle in a whole bunch of different places to stop all of the things that are happening in your body. And so with food foundations, we're coming at the diet piece of it, or I guess one part of the diet, because the diet is so complicated. But yeah, I just want to emphasize sort of that cyclical, that complexity of the human body. It's fascinating. It's beautiful. But when you're trying to fix it, it can be frustrating and difficult. And so I'm always, and this is what we've tried to do, but you know, even when I'm teaching, I'm always trying to emphasize, like, you can't come into a cyclical, like biochemistry and just try to break that cycle at one point. You have to be doing it at multiple points, because if you just break the circle in one place, it's still going to keep looping, and you're still going to have to keep trying to break it at that one place. It's not until you come in and break inflammation or whatever cycle you're looking at, break it at multiple places, that you start to see results.
Yeah.
And that's
no, that makes all the sense. Typical thing, you are a closed unit. You know, what happens in one part of your body has an impact on other function in the body. I like to think of, you know, for example, your hormones. So very much there can often be a hormonal piece to the picture when histamine's an issue, especially can drive more histamine, which can drive more estrogen, which can drive more histamine, and so on and so forth. So, you know, you've got all of your hormones. I think of it as a fan belt in the car. You've got all your different pieces in that fan belt. Well, if one of those organs is out of commission or is out of alignment, it's going to pull all the others with it, which can then drive an imbalance, which then drives inflammation, which then drives histamine, which then starts, you know, there's just, nothing is straightforward. Nothing is linear. Everything is binary, or nothing is binary. I mean, everything is multifaceted. And I think that's what we really ultimately wanted to do as part of creating that safe haven, is you don't have to do any more research. We're done with that. Okay. You can now go have a cup of tea and call it a day, and then tomorrow pick it up again and hopefully join us on Food Foundations. That's the first step for sure. Now, I know if someone is saying, yeah, I don't have any histamine issues, but I sure have inflammation. What do you think? Should they join us?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. As Lucas has said, like, we touch on histamine in this program, but this is really just a foundational, like, we're really focusing on the inflammation piece in this. And if you're asking right now, do I have inflammation? The answer is probably yes.
Are you in 2021?
Yeah. We're inundated with stressors. We're inundated with toxicity, you know, in our environment. We're getting it through breathing. We're getting it through food consumption. We're getting it through maybe some of the body care products or whatever you might be using, but it's toxicity is such a big component. So inflammation in today's world is just a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To like, your gut is where you most closely interact with the outside world. So that's where the majority of your inflammation is going to be felt. Therefore, there's so much we can do with food in terms of timing
Yes.
of food, in terms of nutrients, and hitting those nutrients we need, your macronutrients like the fats and the carbs and the protein, and the micronutrients like your vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and polyphenols and quercetin and all of those good things. And we talk about those for sure in that whole program, Food Foundations. But Food Foundations is really like, I have four pieces. So this is for the person who wants to feel better. First things first. If you say yes to any of these four, then you should take Food Foundation. This is for the person who feels overwhelmed at the whole concept of food, getting dinner on the table. This is for the person who needs to curb cravings, where they are chained to their mid-afternoon coffee, or they cannot stop themselves from choosing a pastry from the tray at work in the lunchroom kind of thing.
Or going through the drive-through to get those fries.
Yeah, or getting that second pot of coffee, not cup, pot, to get through that afternoon energy dump. Yeah. So curbing cravings is a piece of what we're addressing in this whole program. And people who want to learn how to cook from scratch. This is a really simple first entry level into it. The price is the best it's going to be for a really, really long time. So,
and the recipes we're sharing are just simple and so delicious. I'm thinking of bannock right now. We have this amazing, such a simple bannock recipe. It's different from anything else you've ever had.
Yeah, low histamine bonus. All of the recipes in it are low histamine. So this is the interesting thing when you talk about anti-inflammatory diets. There's so many. If you look at anti-inflammatory foods in the health and wellness industry, you will hear you should eat avocado, tomatoes, spinach, citrus, all of these foods. Oh, for fart's sake! Do you know how high histamine those foods are? Even like the keto people who talk about those high stuff like bacon. Well, bacon is so high in histamine.
Yeah.
Histamine is a part of the picture for your inflammatory stuff on the go. Well, you can't just go anti-inflammatory and think you're going to resolve the histamine issue. You need to address this going low histamine and reducing inflammation. So it is a true anti-inflammatory approach to bringing dinner to the table, if you will, taking into consideration those foods that fan the flames of inflammation, those foods that wreak havoc at the gut lining and really prod all of that inflammatory stuff going on, all of those foods that turn off your digestion, they're not part of this picture, actually, in the Histamine Haven, nor in Food Foundations, and those foods that actually help reduce inflammation. You got to reduce the foods that trigger inflammation, but you got to feature the foods that are kind of like the water hose or the fire truck putting out the fire. You need to reduce the stuff that drives the fire, but you need to put the fire out as well.
Yeah.
So include all of that in this Food Foundation. So yeah. Anything else we need to touch on?
No, there's just this 2-word phrase that I love, and it is deeply nourishing. That's what we're here to do. We are here to deeply nourish you, and the recipes we provide are deeply nourishing, and Food Foundations is about deeply nourishing you.
Yeah. So if you're ready for it, listen. Your first plan of attack right now is to add your name to our mailing list. So you can do that through the link in our bio here on Instagram Live. We also have it on every page at our website. We're up at histaminehaven.com. It's very easy. Whatever you're doing, if you want to join us on Food Foundations, this beta version that we're launching next Friday is going to be the best price it's going to be for a really long time. We're going up to $149 in the new year. So the deals to get this under your belt. And if you're like, nah, I have no time to do all of these things yet. Okay, so purchase it now. Put it in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Access it in 3 months' time. Make it your New Year's. I hate New Year's resolutions, but maybe you're like, it's winter. I'm actually going to start. That's my project. My winter project is me. I'm going to look after myself. Well, so sign up for it now while it's a good price. So
Yeah. 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 And, you know, just wrapping things up, for those of you who are in the community, thank you. I know some of you are kind of supporting us through all of this. This is a big startup endeavor for us. So we're super excited you've joined us.
Do you know that we're at 50 people in the community today?
I know, that's exciting.
Dancing in the kitchen. So yeah, if you're watching us now and you're thinking, what is this online community? I don't know if you know this, but we launched this last week. It is a free online community where there's a bunch of different resources. You can print things up. We have recipes, and we have actually a masterclass on the histamine connection in order to help you make that connection with how histamines playing a part in how your symptoms are showing up. So you want to join that? It's
Watch
free.
it.
Yeah, it's in our, you can join our online community through the link in our profile, of course. So yeah, so Tracy, go to bed.
Okay, I'm going to put my thing back in.
Oh, sorry about that. You still good work. All right, I wish you a lovely evening, and to everyone who has caught our live this evening, thanks for sticking around, Deb, and hit us up with any questions. If you're watching this after the fact, please pop your questions in the comments below, and either Tracy or I will get back to you. Take care,
Good night.
Salut, à bientôt.